shroom trip warning to amateurs. A 5-gram mushroom trip report sent in by a subscriber. This was a lesson for me, and a warning to anyone jumping into psychedelics for the first time. Psychedelics just aren't like any other substance, and need to be taken with caution and respect. I had no idea of the path I was taking, but truly changed my perspective on psychedelics forever. They aren't supposed to be negative experiences, rather eye-opening if done correctly. This is my story on my first experience, so enjoy it, I guess. Little backstory on me. I'm fresh out of high school and I'm a pretty normal guy overall. I've researched in the past about psychedelics and was always so amazed and interested about what they did to the human body. I wanted to try them for myself, but was slightly skeptical because I had no idea how I would react to it. I'm a pretty stable mindset individual, and I don't consider myself someone who's into taking a lot of drugs. I mean, I don't even drink. The only other substance I've taken is marijuana, and I just started smoking this year, so psychedelics were the next step for me. It was Saturday, August 9th, 2025. I was staying overnight at my friend's house, and we were planning on taking shrooms later that evening. I had done them 2 days prior with the same friend, because that's when I had bought them. We bought around 8 grams to split equally. Each of us tried about 1 gram over the phone to get a little preview before our sleepover. I felt slightly altered, and colours were definitely significant, but no hallucinations whatsoever, as you would expect on a 1 gram trip. Even though we took a small dose on purpose, I was pretty underwhelmed with the feeling, and smoked a little weed in an attempt to enhance the effects. I was very pleased with my decision, because by then I was feeling a total euphoric sensation over my entire body. It was an extremely relaxing and enjoyable feeling, and I felt the highest I've ever felt in my life. Both me and my friend hung up the phone, realising that we couldn't hold a conversation anymore. I decided to put my AirPods in and go to sleep, and was chilling for the rest of the night. 2 days go by and I arrive at my friend's house. My only goal that night was to get as gone as possible. We waited pretty late to take the shrooms, which, looking back, wasn't the best idea considering the amount of sleep I received the night before. It was around 10:30 PM. My friend was knocked out on his bed because he smoked quite a bit earlier on in the evening. I woke him up so we could begin taking the shrooms like we had planned, and he told me he was done for the night and wasn't in the mood to take them. I was fine with that because, well, that meant more for me. Before I took them, I went downstairs to make a peanut butter sandwich to make them easier to eat. When I returned to the room, my friend was fast asleep again, so I put my night clothes on and got ready for the trip. I sat in a chair on the opposite side of the room from him, and quietly put out the shrooms from the bag. I laid around 5 grams onto my sandwich and ate it. But to be honest, thinking about it, I actually have no clue really how much I consumed. I would guess it was anywhere from 4 to 6 grams. After I finished eating the sandwich, I watched TikTok until the effects began to take hold. It was around 11:15 PM, and my vision was only just a little distorted, but nothing out of the ordinary just yet. I thought that by now I should have seen some type of hallucinations or strange visuals, but no, there was nothing. 20 minutes went by, and by now, I was thinking maybe I didn't take enough of them. My friend was still asleep on his bed, so I quietly got up to use the bathroom. I stared at myself in the mirror and seen my face look slightly distorted in a certain fashion. It seemed as if my face was slowly melting in all directions. It wasn't too weird, but I was definitely a little surprised when I saw it. I came back to the room and sat back in my chair. I waited some more time to see if anything happens. It was about 12 AM, and by this time, I still had felt the same. Nothing had changed my vision or the feeling on my body. I remember the last time when I smoked while I was on shrooms to help the effects, so I did the same here. Almost instantly I felt absolutely amazing. I'd felt the most euphoria and the most pleasure that I felt in my entire life. Even better than the first time, by double. It was pure bliss, to be honest. My friend woke up to my giggling and was now aware that I had taken the shrooms. He thought that we should go downstairs to eat, and I agreed. The room I was in the entire time had red LED lights on, which was probably the reason I wasn't seeing much before, because when I walked downstairs into the normal kitchen lights, I was blown away. The whole room had a vibrant yellow tint to it. The outline of each object I stared at was making a wavy motion like those frequency patterns. I could see things moving in my peripheral vision, and seen what looked very similar to when Miles Morales from the Spider-Man movie senses danger. Looking at my friend looked as if his eyes were growing out of his head, and I was laughing uncontrollably. I was really having the time of my life and thought Shrooms were the best thing ever. This was definitely the wrong thing to think in hindsight, and the next couple of hours was genuinely one of the most thrilling things to ever happen to me in my life. So, with that, unfortunately, this wonderful, pleasurable experience did not last. While it did last for a good amount of time, considering I was on the floor of my friend's room laughing at the ceiling for 30 minutes straight, it wasn't even like I couldn't control it. I felt so good that I couldn't help but to just lay down and smile. At around 1:30 AM, my friend was back asleep and most of the feelings wore off, and I was back at square one. I thought weed was the only thing that was making the shrooms enjoyable. I didn't sleep much the night before the sleepover, so I was also pretty tired at this point. I decided that I would take one more big hit off the cart and call it a night. Bad idea. I took a generous hit from the cart and laid down. By this time, the effects had really started to kick in. I could feel these strange sensations all over my body, as if I was evaporating, then becoming solid, and then evaporating again. Thoughts of stories I've seen or read about involving medium to high dose mushroom trips began to flood through my mind. The things people have said they felt, and how I was feeling, began to feel extremely similar. I now knew that this is the real deal, and I am actually now in for a wild experience. I remember closing my eyes and seeing incredible geometrical shapes shifting in multiple directions. I witnessed a vast array of numerical patterns filling up alien-like structures. It was hard to describe it with words, but each shape looked as if it represented something important. I just couldn't tell what. The feeling began to overwhelm me, considering the things I was imagining were so out of this world yet so lucid at the same time. I thought that I should probably just lay down and go to sleep, so, well, that's what I did. I laid down and put my bonnet over my eyes for an even darker environment. Almost instantly, I lost all feeling in my body, and I became this floating point of consciousness. The real world has left completely now. I was in some type of empty darkness. Every so often an image of a geometrical structure would appear, and I had no idea where they were coming from. It's like something was thinking it for me. I remember feeling like I was part of the structure, as if I was shape-shifting with it. The structures were so complex and detailed, it would fill the whole void that I seemed to be shifting through. I say void here, but if I'm being honest, it felt very confined and nothing was anywhere around me. It would be structure to structure, over and over again, in a constant loop. It seemed to have a new form with just as much complexity and diversity each time. I could feel my presence everywhere at once, but at the same time, it felt so meaningless and insignificant compared to everything else. Here, in this moment, is when I let my ego go without even knowing I did it. Even though I wasn't finding anything I was experiencing in the moment unpleasant, nothing I had seen felt positive, if you can understand what I'm saying. Another weird thing was that each time I visited a structure, it seemed to carry an emotion through it. These emotions weren't prominent in any way. It was just a slight hint, but it would all be different. One would seem as if it was disappointed at me. Another one would seem as if it was tired of working. Just random, sporadic emotions. Like I said, each emotion was very subtle and went away shortly after the next one appeared. The best way I can really put it into words was, it was like viewing the fabric of reality, and each structure represented a part of who I was. But at the same time, everything was very foreign to me. It was very dreamlike, but a very vivid one. So vivid in fact that some images startled me. Visuals that I never thought could exist in our universe. I didn't really want to be here, but at the same time, just going with it wasn't too bad either. I had the intentions of getting as absolutely gone as possible without even knowing what to expect. I had no idea I could imagine something to this magnitude, and I became instantly overwhelmed. I started to shift in and out of the real world and that reality that I was in, mainly due to the fact that my friends had gotten up to use the bathroom. I snapped out of it, lifted my bonnet off my eyes, and saw that everything seemed normal, but had no idea how much time had actually passed. I didn't know a lot of things really, to be honest. I was really disoriented and caught off guard by the experience I just perceived. I wasn't too panicked over it, but was definitely worried to shut my eyes again. I wanted truly to get gone, but wasn't expecting to leave our universe. I didn't fully understand what my ego was until this moment. This was a bad realization. I had no idea, unfortunately, and tried my best to avoid anything that was too much. This would eventually turn into one of the biggest mistakes of my life, and later turned into a real-life nightmare. I couldn't believe this bizarre experience, and never thought I could feel this way in my life. I have no idea what happened between this time and when everything went bad, but I do remember waking up and being in a half-reality state. One part of me was in the regular world, while the other part was feeling like I wasn't even in the same dimension as my body. I could see where I was, I knew where I was, but it seemed as if I was watching everything take down behind my eyes, watching from a giant security camera. I laid down on the floor, moving my head left and right, and recall having the sensation of being in a video game running at 1 frames per second. Everything I was seeing from my vision was displayed on the screen running at 1 FPS, and I was controlling my body on a control panel in my brain. I also kept forgetting who I was or what life was, which made the experience twice as freaky. I remember just aimlessly tossing and turning on the floor, viewing each thing I saw as one image. I'd process that image and then identify what I was seeing. My consciousness would shift in and out of my body, and it was getting harder and harder to differentiate real life and whatever was viewing my life from that third-person perspective. This trip also gave me some insight on what people would mean when they say they've seen themselves in the third person, and it is not as straightforward as you would assume. It's on a more complex, spatial level. This also ties to the 4th dimension, and what the 4th dimension is compared to people's reports and what they felt during their shroom trips. Anyway, as fascinating as all this is, I've gotten a little sidetracked. So, like I was saying, each thing I viewed from my eyes was a single snapshot, and each image would seem like a distant memory. I began to think that I was rewatching my life unfold. I had thoughts that maybe I had died and I was in some sort of hell, forced to spectate my life for an eternity. It honestly felt to me like a never-ending loop of sorts, and this would go on for Lord knows how long. I still had some rational thinking left, surprisingly, and I decided to get up and look for my phone. Each muscle and joint in my body had the sensation of what felt like a bunch of shapes morphing and shifting to match exactly to how my body was moving. Another way I can describe it was like the whole room felt as if it were a 3-dimensional grid, and every time I moved, felt like I was shifting through that 3-dimensional grid if that even makes the slightest of sense. It was super weird, and I'd never experienced anything like this in my life. I remained calm and constantly repeated to myself that it was just the drugs and I'll be fine. I continued to look for my phone in a struggle, and I again had no idea how much time had passed since I went looking for it, but I did actually find it at some point. The clock read around 3:30 AM. I began listening to music to hopefully bring me down some. I thought listening to something normal would help me bring me back to reality. It helped slightly, but not anywhere near where I wanted it to be. The music sounded so familiar, yet so foreign. I was able to understand the lyrics, but it felt so alien that I didn't even want to listen anymore. I wasn't too bothered by this experience, but I wasn't pleased with it either. By this point, I was extremely exhausted, and all I wanted to do was go to sleep. Yet it was really early, and I could not shake the feeling no matter how hard I tried. This was my biggest mistake, and my attempts to resist the trip triggered an attack of horror, trauma, and panic all at once. I felt like I was losing the ability to inhale, like I was in space and oxygen wasn't present. I felt a burning sensation in my heart that began to feel like the whole world, kind of like the world was being closed in on my body. Considering the fact that this was the first time I felt something this intense, but so real, made every bone in my body believe I was about to die. I never felt more like I was going to die in that moment than in my entire life thus far. I thought that I've done it now. I took too much and now I was going to pay the price for it. I began to beg, to plead with God to keep my life. That I wasn't going to die, but by each second, the feeling just kept increasing and increasing. In a panic, I climbed up off the floor to let my friend know that I might be dying. He woke up confused, but not worried at all in the slightest. The feeling of not being able to breathe amplified, and my panic turned into a full-on fighting for my very life. I began to grab my friend, telling him to call 911 and I might be having a heart attack. "Bro, you're good," he kept saying with a worried smile on his face. My heart was beating out of my chest, and I started to feel my vision fading and my balance weakening. I thought, before I died, I should probably make my friend's parents aware, and hopefully they would make an attempt to rescue me and get me to a hospital, and that is exactly what I did. I swiftly stumbled out of my friend's room and down the hall into his parents' room, where I yelled to them, "Guys, I think I'm dying, please help me." My heart was still racing, and they both woke up with an urgency, but so calm in their approach. They sat me down on the edge of their bed. His mom rubbed my back and reassured I was going to be alright, while his dad got me a cup of water. Turns out my throat was so dry it was causing me troubled breathing, and was responsible for the burning I was feeling as well. I guess smoking a lot of weed off shrooms without water can give you a wicked dry throat, as one would expect. I sat on the edge of the bed drinking the water for which felt like hours. It was one of the most relieving feelings of my life. This faucet water tasted like glacier water from Antarctica. Greatest cup of water in my life. It literally felt like it saved my life. I was still super out of it, and at some point I realised that I'd just barged into my friend's parents' room at almost 4 AM to tell them I was dying. I instantly felt super bad and left their room thanking them for their help. I remember trying to verbally apologise for the inconvenience, but barely being able to get a full sentence out. It was mainly just gibberish, and I hurried back to my friend's room. I had no idea how much time I spent in their room, but I knew I was going to have to come up with a hell of a story to justify what I'd just done. I walked back into my friend's room, and he was still up and concerned about me, which I don't blame him for. I told him I just needed to go to sleep. Unfortunately for me, that wasn't going to happen anytime soon. I was on high alert the rest of the trip, trying my hardest not to feel like that again. My heart would race at random times, and my breathing would start to feel like it was dissipating again. I'd begin to panic, thinking the exact same things as before, experiencing the same death-like sensations. I woke my friend up again, and he was still reassuring me calmly, but I could tell he was getting irritated. I thought that I just need to take this like a man and relax, somehow. I'd start to take deep breaths and reassure myself that I would feel better. Then, I'd feel like I was dying again. This process repeated about 8 or 9 times during the rest of the trip. It was hours of agony. It felt like I was constantly trying to fight death every so often. It was like I had to work night shift, so I wouldn't let death take full control over my body. It was a truly horrible feeling. I was fully aware of the normal world at this time, and only effects I was really noticing was the weird vision distortion of the 1 FPS screen. The feelings of wanting to close my eyes were so strong, but closing my eyes brought me back to that world, and I no longer wanted to be a part of it. I was completely done with the experience and wanted it to end so badly. I thought that maybe the trip was over and I've just made myself disabled. I fried my brain, and now I will never be the same again. I've begun to just accept this though, and go to sleep anyway. I'd seen some visuals that were on the more intense side, but they went away after some time, and I guess I just went to sleep. I woke back up around 7 AM and felt completely normal. My vision was back, I was back, the world was back. Everything was fine again. I was extremely relieved and felt a great wave of, it's finally over. I was beyond grateful to be sober. The inescapable prison of the trip was finally over, and I was delighted. The night I just experienced felt like a battle going on for years. I felt like trash though, and still was a little disoriented, so I went back to sleep. I woke up a few hours later at around 10:30 because I was getting picked up at 11. I used the bathroom, and I looked in the mirror again. I had seen the world from a new perspective. And looking at myself in the mirror for the next 24 hours was a very weird feeling which was beyond indescribable. I had some minor flashbacks that gave me spikes of anxiety, but I was able to shake them fairly easily. I was trying to remember all of the things that I saw, but even though they happened so recently, they seemed like they had happened thousands of years ago. They seemed so ancient and complex that I couldn't remember it in full detail. Randomly, when smoking weed, I started to get similar sensations or visuals that helped me remember some of the things I saw. This also helped me come back to add more to my trip report here. In all fairness, I actually never want to do shrooms again, but at the same time, I wasn't necessarily prepared for this trip either. I was a beginner jumping right into the thick of it, which also played a part in my bad trip. The stories I've read always intrigued me, but nothing would have prepared me for what I experienced that night. There is something within me drawing me to take them again, but if I do decide to do it, I will be better prepared this time. Big thanks to the subscriber who sent in this cautionary tale of why not to jump into the deep end immediately. Tales like these are really a great litmus test for whether you're serious about doing a long haul journey or wanting the fruits of serious psychedelic work within one night. And with that comes a level of, I guess, ego and hubris that will actually bite you in the arse during the trip itself, because your ego gets shattered for the first time, which is just gonna take 90% of people or more by shock, because most people don't even know what the ego is, that it can be unraveled, or that they are an egoic separate self. So when you experience this in any fashion, it might not even be on psychedelics, it can be through any walk of life where you have an ego shattering experience. They happen in very subtle ways, like, for example, the ego of who you are, what you're capable of, what you are on an existential level can shatter based upon, like, I don't know, taking upon a challenging task, and then an element of your ego shatters. I don't know, you have this egoic idea, like, even a victim complex. There's this ego of being a weak person, and ego being a strong person, and everything in between, like, I am incapable of doing this task, incapable of, I don't know, I'm incapable of travelling around the world by myself, or, on the other end, I am completely capable of travelling the world by myself, and I can do it, I was born to do it, and all of the varying emotions and feelings in between that are just on the gamut of egoic ideas of who you are. And then you go and actually do it, and then your ego, part of your ego that was governing that decision dissipates, and this destruction of the ego is actually what gives rise to creation of a healthier state of mind, less ego, more consciousness, as David Lynch would say. I always refer back to David Lynch because fascinating man, you know him, because he's very much aware of the wide ocean of consciousness that stems from each one of us. And he never did psychedelics, or I mean, he smoked weed. If you watch that documentary of The Art Life, is it The Art Life by David Lynch, where he discusses many of his life experiences, and one of the most important for him was his altered state experience with cannabis, but actually what opened him up to higher states of consciousness was meditation. So, as I say to many people, if you're not ready for psychedelics, well, if you've got too dense of an ego, you won't even acknowledge that you're not ready for them. You're just going to jump in and have this sort of experience anyway. And obviously, major kudos to the person for being honest in their trip report here about how they went about this experience, the thoughts and feelings about it, the thoughts and feelings about themselves, how they'd handle it, and just being honest about the hubris that was an element of the trip beforehand. And yeah, let's just comment on some of the things that went into making this a disastrous experience that could have gone a lot worse, but a mentally disastrous experience. Like, obviously it wasn't a major train wreck like some of the experiences I cover on this channel. He didn't end up in the emergency room, he didn't start eating his own hands or attacking his friends, doing all this sort of crazy stuff that can happen when you have an ego death on 5 grams of mushrooms. I've not even done 5 grams of mushrooms. I've always just experimented. The way I've done it, sorry for going on a tangent, but you know how my mind works. I have always just, even from the beginning, right? I fell off this path, which naturally can come because the ego will always twist your life, twist your consciousness into just bullshittery. So I have fallen off the path and messed about with psychedelics and paid the price for them, but then integrated it, thankfully, in some sense, still integrating a lot of my experiences. But in my most pure respect for the substances, I didn't have to go through like a destructive, harrowing experience. I just sort of knew it intuitively that, oh, whoa, I just took 1 gram of mushrooms and I'm experiencing a genuinely altered state of perception. Or then I'd take a low dose of, I'd always just take a low dose of a new psychedelic substance initially, because there was actually this healthy level of fear, because I mean, I'm racked with fear as a person, to be honest, and always have done since I was a child. Maybe that's some inner child trauma or whatever, but in a sense it actually helped me out because I never messed about with low doses of at high doses of substances. I wouldn't be like, oh wow, well I've just I've had this journey of taking 1 gram mushrooms, then experimenting with that for a few weeks, moving up to 2, and just having a healthy relationship with it that allowed me to actually handle, say, 4 grams of mushrooms of cubensis, which was my highest cubensis trip. And then I've had unknown doses of Liberty Caps. Actually, when I went off the rails, all of the times I've ever had bad experiences with psychedelics is when I literally just used them to escape, or like this subscriber says, they wanted to get as gone as possible. And that's the level of egoic ideas about the experience. Like, right, I just want to get high. I just want to experience something crazy. I just want to get gone. It's just indicative of an escapist fantasy about psychedelics that will naturally incur some karma during the experience and stick with you in a good way if you integrate it and don't turn it into a victim complex. But if you integrate it and be like, woof, that really humbled me, then that's when you can go on some deeper journeys with psychedelics, and then that's when you can start really taking this very seriously and having a fruitful relationship with them. That might not always be sunshine and rainbows, but that's what's so beautiful about psychedelics. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, and it will force you to face your inner demons, make you self-reflect, maybe even will teach you some self-respect as well. Definitely teach you some respect for the substances, to honour their power and to work with them, rather than twist them to work with you, the lowercase you, the lower self, sort of manipulating the psychedelic in a sense here. Like, this guy, and I completely relate to, I've done it before, absolutely no judgments, this is just the path that we're all on, different paths, different approaches to life, and it's completely fair enough, but it's worth commenting on, especially for people who might be in a similar position to this person, might be having these thoughts of like, I think I'm gonna go from 1 gram to 5 grams in a day, and wondering what will happen, and actually not caring what, actually if you wondered what will happen, you would have to question and self-reflect, and probably be like, oh right, okay, maybe I should slow down, regroup, and just really contemplate what you're doing, and that's what will save you from a horrific experience. But completely fair enough that this happens. I don't know how old this person was either, that's something you got to take into account. The younger you are, the more likely you are to be immature, like I was in my early psychedelic experiences, but I still had this level of just, deep respect and reverence for them, which came with a lot of research into trip reports and other people's experiences, watching videos of many of the people like now I'm affiliated with, like Your Mate Tom, Psych Substance, Dakota Wint, etc., and many other various YouTubers who have come and gone that I couldn't name off the top of my head, but there's so many people on YouTube talking about psychedelics and online, the blue light forums. They all really helped me because if I had not referenced their experiences in my trip, my ego could have gone awry and just been like, oh, well, whatever, I don't need to know, I don't want to know, I'll just fucking do it, and then pay the price. And sometimes the price can be very, very high and can actually leave you with PTSD and can shatter your whole life, especially if you've not got your shit together. I've said this many times before, that psychedelics can actually be an unhealthy distraction from just life. I know for a fact I've experienced that and still am reeling from it, where I've been reflecting a lot lately without psychedelics in the past few years, because I really don't trip very often. I've only had one trip this year, on 2 trips, one 2CB trip and an LSD trip, which for me, there was actually a little level of fear, because I guess my ego has reconsolidated itself since I don't use psychedelics as regularly, and I have fallen off the path in some sense. I've talked about I'm going through a dark night of the soul sort of era, but this is all just necessary for my development and completely natural. But there is a fear and a warranted pre-trip anxiety every time I take a psychedelic, because I'm like, oof, my ego definitely has solidified again, and there's some stuff that I've been running away from, especially in terms of just maturity. Really, the big thing for me is like I've recognised now that I'm quite emotionally immature at my core, and that while psychedelics and my consciousness work did help me navigate certain eras of my life, I was still not really going deep enough to fathom why I've been so emotionally immature as a very emotionally unstable young man, as a child and as a teenager. And substances and consciousness work and spirituality definitely helped me navigate that and sort of carve out a new persona for myself. But there's always been this underlying baggage that I've never really truly alchemized, and I'm trying to do that right now without psychedelics. But maybe actually psychedelics are the answer, who knows? But there is definitely this level of inner child fear that's stopping me. But there's so many other things in life I can be doing as well, that I just like literal practical life stuff that I am lacking in. But that's all in my personal journey that I probably will cover more as I go travelling from this Sunday onwards. I'm going to Switzerland, Romania and Japan, so there won't be many videos, unfortunately, over the next few months, at least in regards to trip report stuff. So there'll be a lot of on-camera videos talking about mystical phenomena, spirituality, insights into my own journey and how that relates to psychedelics, and everything we talk about on the channel. I try my best on camera to weave in my own personal insights into sort of like the truth of the matter, but I don't try to I try my hardest not to get myself, the Vivec self, the identity consumed within the truth of what we're dealing with here. But that's just part and parcel of being a content creator. There's always going to be a level of persona of your character coming into it. But to flip back to the beginning, I definitely have ADHD. That's one thing I'm really embracing at the minute, because I never thought I did, and I genuinely would compare myself to ADHD people, and I'm like, nah, it's so blatantly evident. I listen back to these videos, completely riddled with it. There's different gradations of ADHD, but I 100% have some dopamine deficit. In a sense, my actual dopamine deficit in ADHD mind is what an autistic mind. I probably have ADHD. I don't know. I look at these. Do you ever look at them mental disorders online? You look at bipolar or borderline personality disorder, split personality, schizophrenia, and you're like, oh, I actually have a bit of all of these. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I am really fucked. But yeah, it's interesting. I think my dopamine deficit is what really drew me towards substances. Literally just substances at first, like MDMA, cocaine, marijuana, and then it was the dopamine deficit sort of inspired me to, I'm going to take all the drugs. And then I got into psychedelics, so whoa, this is making me go deeper than just I want to feel something or I want to escape. This is making me confront my shadow. Just to go back to the trip report, another thing I would like to say is that maybe this was problematic. I mean, probably another problematic element of this is that the guy had no sleep really the day before. I've also said this many times, and you all know this, that you should treat your body with respect and love for the temple that it is, regardless of whether you're going on a trip or not. But you should really hone in on your health, nutrition, exercise, and just purity of mind and body before you get into a trip, because they are going to play a part in how it unfolds. So make sure you get enough sleep, eat well, don't eat the shrooms or any psychedelic for that matter on a full stomach. Make sure you've got an empty stomach. Should leave at least like 2 to 3 hours, depending on who you are, how long it takes your stomach to fully empty, then take them, because oftentimes the nausea and subsequent uncomfortable body sensations can come with having a full stomach, because, I mean, your body will probably it's going through so much body load with a psychedelic anyway, that you don't want extra baggage to mess around with. And another thing here, I think, and I can relate to it because being an ADHD dopamine deficit person, naturally have fallen into the doom scrolling short form content hellhole of a world and existence that we live in at the minute. It's very sad. Really fried my already fried dopamine receptors to the point where I do find it quite hard to just sit down and do something that requires some long form of attention. Really something I'm actually trying to rid myself of, which is why I'm going to Switzerland. I'm literally just going to do like serious meditation, or as serious as I can handle, and really try to rewire my mind, body and spirit without psychedelics. Because, I mean, let's face it, psychedelics are illegal, and sometimes I don't actually... Someone who isn't me might not have access to them as often as I'd like, and also not in a... We must also consider here that this guy literally bought just... I don't know how I got them. I assume he just bought them off the street. Doesn't even know what they are. So he's taking 5 grams of... It could have been penis envy, blue meanies, liberty caps. If you don't know what you're doing, and you don't know how to differentiate shrooms by eye, and you don't have the means to, or know how to post them anywhere on Reddit or and people can identify them for you, you're not going to know what you're taking. You're just like, oh, well, shrooms are just shrooms. There's no difference between the strains. Which 5 grams of cubensis versus 5 grams of liberty caps versus all of the different strains, so different. And you've not just got psilocybe mushrooms. You've got amanitas as well, and some people just literally don't know, do they? Which is why I guess these trip reports are so valuable, and all of the other psychedelic education is, because people literally just don't know this, do they? You've got to actually find this out yourself, or yeah, well, I mean, you're even finding it out yourself when you actually have to look it up online, because you have to literally type it in and find it out, or go on a forum or join someone's community, and they'll help you out. Because at the end of the day, some people just don't. I find it fascinating, because I've always been one of these people who've never asked anyone. I've never asked them really for advice on this stuff. I've always just like done it myself, found it myself. Because it does make me laugh a bit when people... it's just fair enough, because people are just wired up differently. But it does give me a bit of a chuckle when people say, like, they'll message me or email me or ask on the Discord, yo, do you know what this means? And I am like, well... I guess I'm not even a teacher, am I? I'm just some guy on YouTube, but I guess I do sort of know what I'm on about in the limited sphere of my knowledge. So I guess I do have this sort of teacher, tutor role to play, but I also just have to be honest that I don't actually know anything, and I don't want to say things that I don't know, and I'm very, very serious about the fact that I'm very, very not capable of knowing everything, and don't know everything, and will never know everything. So I have to just tell them the limited things that I know, and then just be like, okay, right, here's some better resource, because there's just better resources out there than me, and that's the truth. I guess you should put them all together to get a wider, more holistic understanding. But yeah, I sometimes think people fall upon a teacher to just tell them everything, when I was like, you really want to be you'll get an even deeper sense of discovery and knowledge and understanding by actually doing it yourself, and also this will grow you as a person, because at the end of the day, the other person is not always going to help you out. You've got to help yourself out and really grab reality by the gear stick and operate it yourself on manual, rather than having someone automate your journey for you. But anyway, back to what I was originally on about. Watching TikTok waiting for the effects to kick in, I think can be a double-edged sword. I mean, I would personally just recommend not doing that at all, because the less dopaminergic activities you spend time distracting yourself in before a trip is going to allow you, say, like, what are you doing really when you're doing that? You're just like, all right, I'm just going to entertain myself till the effects kick in. Nothing to contemplate, nothing to do except just scroll and get dopamine and forget about what I've really just done, i.e. taken 5 grams of mushrooms. Because I think that comes from a level of fear, and it's not a healthy way to approach the fear. I mean, to approach the fear in a healthy way, you're going to have to like take a deep breath and meditate and contemplate and just look up at your ceiling, or have some mindfulness waiting for the trip to kick in. And yeah, if you're not doing that, that can actually result in quite a horrendous experience. I know that many times I've taken, like, I remember when I took that 4-ACO DMT, the few times I'd taken it, I'd just like sort of eat it and then be like, oh, right, okay, I've just done that, but let's forget about that and put a film on and just see what happens. And then before you know it, the film is literally coming out the TV and interacting with you and talking to you, and then bending your reality, and you're like, oh god, this is too much, I can't do it. And then you go upstairs to your bedroom, lay down, and you're like, oh, all right, well, just watch something else on my phone, which is exactly what I did on my 90mg 4-ACO DMT trip. Let's just sit down and watch some Berserk analysis on YouTube, which is what I did. I watched the Max Dirac analysis of Griffith's character from Berserk, and then before I knew it, I was like, the distraction's not working, put music on, and then a bit like this subscriber, and this happened to me many times, but let's put on some normal music, the music that normally relaxes me, makes me happy, or allows me to escape, and then it just sounds like alien language and sounds weird and makes me feel weird. And yeah, a big piece of advice I could give is if music isn't helping you calm down and it's not allowing you to let go of a sort of body tension in your body and not allowing you to release your ego and release your attachment, if it's not allowing you to free flow and dance and just be in a rhythm with the trip and the universe and whatever, and your higher self, just turn it off and literally you're just gonna have to like surrender the best you can and embrace it, which is easier said than done, but that's the only way to really allow the trip to not turn into an utter nightmare. It's still gonna hurt and still gonna be painful probably, but it can get way worse than having some negative feelings and anxiety. It can get pretty bad, as we have found on this channel. Another word of warning is, this was a big element of the trip that we must take into account. It wasn't just obviously his first time was of a gram, but let's consider this his first time, really, his first time actual trip. He smoked weed on it, and we know that that's a Russian roulette that do you want to mess about with? It can, enhance the euphoria, enhance the trip, and really is what actually produced my first ego death on LSD, on unknown amount of that. I was having a lot of issues with my girlfriend and life at the time, so much heavy stuff that I've talked about in the past on the channel, and this was in like 2017, and I was just like, oh fuck it, I'll take loads of LSD at a party and smoke some weed with my mates, and then before I knew it, I literally broke the fabric of reality, exited the Matrix, and completely went insane. Like literally went actually insane. My mate sent me, it was my birthday the other day, I was 28 years old, and my mates always send me the videos of me going crazy in many instances on psychedelics. Good crazy and bad crazy, but yeah, that time when I smoked weed on loads of tabs, or a few tabs, I actually had gone mental. I've talked about it before with my first few trip reports. I'd urinated my underpants and was basically asking people to give me knives, and I was going to try to jump out the window because I thought that this house was like, the room was just floating in the universe and in like a pocket dimension. If I got out the house in any way possible and in some form of elegant leap of faith fashion, like getting out the window, I would have flown out into the cosmos and become some angelic being. But actually all it would have done is give me a very sore head as my skull came face to face with the very hard concrete. So thankfully I had some great friends that stopped me from doing that, and I just sat in a corner and just chatted absolute shit, basically fucking like glossolalia, talking in tongues. It was crazy. No wonder I feel absolutely mad. I'm definitely a mad-minded person. I've always have been since a kid, but No wonder I went mad on psychedelics as well. Mad minds, mad experiences. So yeah, really, I think my biggest piece of advice for anyone who is feeling like this subscriber did in terms of their just like life story, because many people relate to him, fresh out of high school, normal guy overall, interested in psychedelics, didn't really have much substance use history. If you're going down that path and you're feeling the same as him, just don't do 5 grams, just take a gram. And if it doesn't do anything, there's no... I think people feel like, there's the element of like, well, I've wasted my money, I've wasted my time, wasted my energy. Right, fuck it. And you can get angry and you can get this egoic reaction like, I'll just take 5 grams because why the fuck not? I want to experience something now. And then you attach this identity to like, right, well, like, if 1 gram doesn't do anything, I've clearly got a natural sensitivity to psychedelics. And these are all just assumptions, and assumptions are going to mess you up because assumptions are just, well, what are they? Yeah, you're presuming that something is the case when you actually have no idea. And this can really mess you up and bite you in the ass. Be careful smoking cannabis on any dosage of psychedelics, especially 5 grams, because this is just going to open fucking Pandora's box. And while there's a lot of hope in Pandora's box, there's also a lot of demonic entities and energies that will probably mess you up quite a lot. And weed is a very intense substance, as it is for quite a lot of people, and even stoners don't realise. I've seen this many, many, many times with people who are like stoners who then get into psychedelics and literally smoke loads of weed every day. They take acid and like, oh well, that was pretty cool, pretty interesting. It's definitely an altered state, and then it subsides and they're like, right, well, that was interesting. I really enjoyed it, but let me roll a joint to then now engage in this thing that is basically just a habit that they do. And then they smoke weed, and then the trip reignites at fucking like 12 a.m. at night and they can't sleep, and that's when they really start to experience it. And it can be a lot of good, a lot of bad, and everything in between. Maybe, especially when you have no idea about the fact that marijuana can like reignite a trip after the fact. If you don't know that and you just do it, then it's going to take you aback. It's going to shock you in a positive, negative way. You really have got to grasp the fact that they do synergize, and there are drug synergistic experiences that can synergize in a positive way, or can be all sorts of different ways. And then how many substances you synergize, and then there's synergies of multiple substances that people haven't even recorded before. That's why I like exploring these just crazy substance combinations, like people take MDMA and then the datura and then ayahuasca all in one, because that is out there. Like, especially for me, because I'm like, I have so much reverence for psychedelics in my own mind that I would just never ever do that. Whilst I have many times before at festivals when I've been in party mode and hedonist mode, I'm like, I'll take all the substances. And you know what? You can actually have this, like, what they can do is they can play a trick on you. You might take all these substances, MDMA and cocaine and marijuana and 2CB and ketamine, and you can you can literally go from one extreme state, a state of immense bliss that lasts for 10 minutes, and within that 10-minute time frame, you will just think, oh, nothing's going to stop us now. This is me for the rest of the trip. And then after that 10 minutes is up, you literally just go down straight to hell, and then you can rise back up, go completely neutral, and your state can fluctuate so intensely that it can leave you sobbing on the floor, curling up into fetal position and begging for your mum to stroke your head and feed you milk and put on your favourite 4Kids dub of an anime to sort your head out. So yeah, it is massive ballpark when you're dealing with combining substances. I know I've gone a bit off topic, but this might be my last video for quite a bit, so I hope that this has resonated with you in some sense, this commentary section. I know that I make these commentary sections quite long now, but I think trip reports, while just by themselves are very educational, I think they do require some addendum, especially when it's something like this that I think a lot of people, especially I know that a lot of like teenagers and young adults listen to me. They will possibly be going through this. If you're fresh out of high school, I don't know how old that would make you in America, but in the UK, you're like 16 coming out of high school. I was literally a child when I was 16, and I was playing around with these substances, and they quickly humbled me. They quickly got my arse in gear and forced me to navigate the psychedelic space with consciousness rather than ego. But then I would fall back into ego, as I was destined to, will do, and probably always, well, hopefully not always, but I am destined to, because I am just a limited self. I'm not a sage. I'm not enlightened. I'm just someone who's always had an interest in the weird, the surreal, and the strange, and expanding my mind in many ways. As a child, I would expand my mind by like consuming various different forms of art, but I was also a very scared child who couldn't leave the house, so my world was just in my room, and I would expand my world through my room as much as I could. Games, art, movies, music, talking to people online, exploring virtual worlds, living like a life, like San Andreas multiplayer and stuff. Done so much crazy stuff on my computer, it's mad. Basically lived out different lives on there, which was also quite beneficial for my psychedelic experiences, where I was like having experiences of multiple personality disorder, which I've talked about on LSD. Look at my video, experiencing multiple personalities on LSD. Watch one of my craziest trips by far, when I was just literally just switching through different identities, and there was no sense of me. It wasn't an ego death. It was like it was like an ego revolving oscillator that just was just like completely threw my sense of identity out the window. And when I came around from that trip, I did have a bit of depersonalization and derealization. Didn't know how to integrate that, and I think it is one of them trips that's really stayed with me. Yeah, in conclusion, just to wrap this up, no, I've been waffling. Just make sure that whenever you do get into psychedelics, you might be listening to these when you've never taken a psychedelic before. Don't listen to some of your peers. You're fresh out of high school, you're gonna have quite egoic peers, as we all do. You navigate in your ego as a teenager, especially when you start to really, your identity really starts to become denser and more fixed, rather than fluid as it is in like your early years of existence, where it's being formed from your external sources and then your own source of self. Yeah, we all navigate it differently, don't we? But some of your friends, if you are coming out of high school, will have a level of narcissism, psychedelic narcissism. Well, I took all these and I was fine. Surely you're fine. You're my friend. If you're my friend, you'll do it, won't you? And some people will act like that, and then other people will literally just be clueless. They won't even know what to say to you. So if you are in that position and you've got friends who you're a bit skeptical of their level of knowledge and purity of mind, please consume more content like this, and don't just consume my content. Please go and look up resources, read books. They are so important. Reading books, not just watching videos and watching a TikTok. Like, right, okay, maybe I'm projecting too much on short form content, but whilst it can be informational, little snippets of it can be informational, and I think there is like healthy, conscious short form content. This can't just be consumed by itself. It needs to have been complemented with long form, dedicated work and investment into just deeper, more broad sources of information. There's nothing wrong with watching a TikTok on spirituality and psychedelics and mysticism. Definitely not. I've made short form content. It's fun, and also you can fit a lot of stuff into a 60-second video. But let's be honest with ourselves. Is this really good for the mind, just completely consuming that as it is and then being satisfied with it? And it will, because they're hijacking your dopamine receptors. And this is why I think people with ADHD and neurodivergence can struggle with this, like circumnavigating the psychedelic space with positivity and have these nightmarish experiences, because they just don't know what they're doing. And the psychedelic will force you to know, whether you like it or not. And of course there's going to be some resistance, because if you don't know, and then you're being all this mad, crazy stuff that you didn't even think was possible, like in this trip where he was experiencing structures that he thought couldn't even be manifested in our own universe. If you don't know that that's a possibility, and then you experience that directly, it's going to throw you off and probably put you into a state of fear, especially if you're like an ADHD autistic person whose relationship with reality, especially what is it like for kids today and teenagers going through high school? And I'm like on the cusp of Gen Z, born in 1997. I was like the first generation to grow up with the internet, and look how I've turned out and all my peers have turned out. Some good, some bad, and we're still trying to figure ourselves out in the wake of having the very first experience of this new world and having no one to really tell us what it's like. And that's something that I think lingers with a lot of Gen Z people, and I say like late millennials, is how do you figure this out when nobody else has experienced this type of life before? I don't really know what I'm saying, but I hope some of it made sense. In conclusion, respect psychedelics, respect yourself, respect the journey you're undertaking if you want to do these semi-regularly and tap into a higher state of being, because you might have delusions and you've got to be honest with yourself if you do have delusions, but that's going to be quite hard because nobody wants to admit they have delusions. But it's very healthy to actually admit that and be truthful to yourself that, oh, I don't really know what I'm on about. I'm completely wrong in some aspects and this can be painful, but you know what? It'll be the makings of you, and that even that admittance of being wrong is a shedding of an ego, shedding of a part of your ego in a very microscopic fashion. But if you do that quite a lot, that will actually have a complementary effect on your trip. So you're like, oh, I actually do engage with some like ego shedding habits of self-introspection and practically speaking, meditating, going traveling, and just exposing yourself to new and challenging life experiences. That's sort of shedding the ego in a sense, and then you synergize that with trips, and then that's where you can get the really beautiful, positive, life-transforming experiences, and the experiences of what really is the ultimate beauty and just unfathomable level of harmony that you can get on psychedelics. And that's the awakening experiences, the God level realizations that you can get from psychedelics, and that's where it gets really beautiful, but not in a egoic hedonic sort of way, but in a just really what peace is just peace of mind, calmness of being, and just the ultimate sigh of relief. Yeah, I know oftentimes I do focus on these cautionary tales and nightmarish experiences, but I do have to acknowledge that a lot of my audience can and will twist the positive experience into like, oh my god, wow, you can experience heaven on psychedelics? What the fuck? Let's take them all. And they will do it, because then you got an audience of 160,000. There's going to be some fringe type characters and the egos that will just bend the truth to their own suiting. But funnily enough, when you try to bend the truth on psychedelics, they will destroy you in a good way, if you can actually integrate the destruction experience. If you don't, then well, just be wary that it can shake your life up, produce depersonalization, derealization, PTSD, and all these horrible experiences that you might not even be able to fix yourself. You could end up going to therapy, which is not a bad thing. If you're going through these things, definitely seek help. And sometimes more meditating, more nutrition, and psychedelic trips are not going to be the things to save you. Sometimes you have literally just got to bite the bullet and throw the towel in, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. But we as egos love to have this weird like negative perception of, right, well, I've got to do it, haven't I? I've got to go to therapy, I'm weak. And it's like, no, actually, you're so strong for doing that. And I'm actually going to do that soon, because I think there's so many things that I can't unpack about my life by myself. And I think it'll be really healthy for me, especially if I can weave that into my spiritual journey. I think it's really commendable when people just go and do that. But there will be this element of thinking you're having to throw the towel in. And in a sense, you are throwing the towel in. You're like, right, okay, finally, I admitted to myself, I need to try other I need to try other things in this journey rather than just focusing on one aspect of it, or just two or three. You got to have many different resources you're engaging in, I think, to get any benefit out of spiritual work. Anyway, guys, I will just leave you here for now, and we'll be back with trip reports in the next few months. I don't know how long I'm going away for, but I am very much doing the classic cringe of I need to find myself. But I really do. I need to. I just need, as James would say on Twin Peaks, I just need to get on my bike and go. But I do. I need to get out. I'm trapped in a box. I feel like my world is very small, and I don't have. Someone who isn't me doesn't have the ability to expand my world right now within the four walls of my own room. I actually lost the house as well. I talked about moving out, and I had to move back to my parents, which has made me go back to the drawing board and has resulted in some depression and some very silly perspectives on what I'm going through right now, because it's not going back to square one. It's just going back to the drawing board, and that's a good thing. Go back to the drawing board and draw a better piece. And part of that, I think, is the next thing for me is, right, I tried the house, I've learned a lot of lessons, made some mistakes, had some successes. That short but felt like equally long. It was 8 months. I was only there for 8 months. Didn't get kicked out of the house. You're just at the behest of the landlord, and it just was like, right, okay, time's up for you. We're just gonna get some family member in. Just, you're at the behest of them, aren't you? So I had to move back home. I was forced to. I didn't really want to, but that's what the universe dictated was meant to be. And you know what? I'll embrace that, because now it's actually opened me up for traveling and big travels, that big intense journeys that will force me to grow as a person. I can even feel my inner child then like quiver. Oh God, I've got to actually do some stuff, do some difficult work, inner work, and face some stuff and integrate the micro Vivec within me into the macro Vivec that I want to become. Love you all. Hope you're all sailing through this crusade of personal development in the healthiest way you can.
Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more.
I never say that, so far I'd say it now. Join the Discord. Follow me on Instagram for more insights and behind the scenes stuff, where I do go into quite a lot of detail about me as a person and just life, and there's a lot of juicy stuff I could say on my Discord. Really great educational resources on there, and just a place to hang out and chat, and even people there to trip sit you as well. It's quite a very healthy community we got on there, and it's also just a laugh. It's good fun as well, but because I don't claim to be running any spiritual community, I am a bit of a jester, court jester type person. I just have to be honest with that. I'm not an enlightened sage, and that's just me. Act like a waste man, that's not me. And keep your eyes peeled for some on-camera videos whilst I'm away, and hope you have a lovely day, and shall see you on the other side.